I was just going to say we're delivering hot, fresh garbage, and I'm about to take the first little bit out of the oven, first course of the meal.
Sniff it,
Um,
smell it, see what it smells like.
Everyone and their mother is talking about tariffs and everything
Sure.
going on, obviously, but it kind of sparked my mind on like what I actually believe as far as like, let's say general economics. Let's just say everyone here's
Oof.
an idiot. Nobody knows
Sure.
what they're talking about, right? Like this is me just saying
Absolutely.
what I think with no, you know what I'm saying? Just like with whatever I've thought over the years. So like people say, oh, they agree or disagree. Nobody listens really, but like we don't care. All right. So especially as it pertains to tariffs, like tariffs is obviously disrupting globalism in a way, right? And that kind of relates to the internet. Would you agree? Where like the internet has had a hard on for being like anti globalism in many different ways. But wouldn't you agree that that is
That the
like,
general sentiment is anti-globalism?
or even let's not even say that. I'm going off on a dumbass foot. Let's say this. Wouldn't you say that it's been like less counterculture and more mainstream to be like
Mm.
anti-globalism in the
Yeah,
last
for sure.
whatever, like yeah,
There's
since the
definitely a
first
growing
Trump term.
movement there. Yeah.
Right.
First Trump term, the UK leaving the
So I'm gonna
EU.
start with the thing that everyone's going to tar and feather me for, and I don't give a shit because I'm gonna sit here and tell you why. So globalism is good, in my opinion,
Oof. Whoa.
because what globalism does. Well, hang on, let me go. What globalism does is it allows more human beings in more ways from more markets with more resources to work together to build wealth. You can only build as much wealth as you have as many people and things like producing it, right? And I think it's a fact of life that like you buy your on the smallest scale, which is dumb to do, and call me out if this is bad. But on the smallest scale, you are you and you have no partner, you'll be able to build less wealth in life than if you had a partner that you trusted and mixed finances and did that over X amount of time. Or even like if
Mm.
somehow you had three or
Mm.
four or 10, right? So, like in general, massive in general. And again, dude, I am so stupid, bro. And you know this. But the
Yeah.
people out there, we need to let them know. So, best
Sure.
belief, best belief. But
This
in
this
general, the more people you have working together, the more wealth you can build. So, it gets more complicated than just, I think globalism is good. The reason I think it's good is because it builds as much wealth as possibly could be built, and then you use government as a check to the markets. Globalism goes kind of hand in hand with markets, right? To like
Yeah.
make sure basic needs are met, making sure inequality is not getting out of control, taxing rich people to be able to redistribute, to make sure necessities are met. You know, everyone out here, oh, you know, this idiot's a communist. No, we're just taking a baseline of basic necessities, right? You're taxing a little, but you're allowing that wealth to grow. Like I feel like it's social democrat. You ever heard that term? But go ahead. Any thoughts?
I'm familiar. Yeah, I'm
Sure.
familiar.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, globalism in general is a good thing. I do think, especially with uh, a mass information day and age that we live in, to try and be an isolationist is just incredibly hard.
Yeah.
Um,
What that'll
but
even look like is right.
you do have to agree that like a lot of jobs, industrial, of course,
Yes.
jobs have leached out of the United States as a result of globalism.
100%. My answer to that is that the government never did enough to help those people land on their feet better and do better for the people. They just fucking sat on their hands and did Reaganism, which is basically cut taxes for rich people and everyone else. We don't care. And that's not going to, you know
Trickle
what I'm saying?
down.
Like, that's not a good check on, like, two things can be true where the jobs absolutely left, but globalism can still be good if you're running the country in a way that really leads forward on making sure that like the least of us is still economically somewhat viable. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Mm.
Maybe I'm crazy, but
So, do you believe in tariffs at all?
of course, I think like if you do targeted tariffs on certain things, like there's been over the years through Trump and Biden, then yeah, sure, of course, no doubt. Because there's other things to consider. When I say globalism is like generally good or I believe in it, I just mean that it builds wealth, right? Of course, there's negatives to anything, including globalism. You know, But I'm not even trying to two sides it. I just think that overall there's more pros with it.
Sure.
But even having said all that, I do still think that tariffs can be good in certain ways because it's not all about building wealth. And I believe that. Come on now, healthcare should be Medicare for all. So there's definitely some areas where like just because you're building wealth, that doesn't mean it's bringing its best value to society, So it's like it's tricky because like I feel like I'm over talking it too much. I still want to hear what you think more. But because you have to like explain yourself when you say you do believe in something, but it's like why? It's like this is how you would, in my view, try to make everything work.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's smarter ways to do it. For me,
Do what?
if he
Wait,
was
do
going
what?
to okay, well, so
From his his tariffs are dumb. Go ahead. Yeah.
right, but his rationale is that it's going to bring back manufacturing to the U.S., which there's something to be said for that,
But you need
not the way
government
that he's going
investment too,
about it.
though.
Correct.
Right.
Yes, you
That's the
have
thing.
to encourage those businesses to crop up. And the other thing that's dumb, like, okay, so let's take Colombia for example. We slapped a decent chunk of tariffs on Colombia because we buy an absolute fuckload of coffee from them. The problem with that, though, is the logic kind of falls apart because there is only a certain belt that you can grow coffee in, and it's generally by the equator, right? So you can't. That is not an industry we're going to spark up in the U.S. because we're tariffing coffee from Colombia. We physically cannot grow it in our climate.
Dude, you're right. But like his tariffs are mad stupid. The idea that trading is like a zero sum game. That alone is so stupid. It's like you go to McDonald's every day. You bought a breakfast sandwich there every day for a year. What did McDonald's buy from you? Oh, they have a huge trade deficit with you. It's like trading's not a zero sum. You gave it money. They gave you a product. You know what I'm saying? It's like trading's not a zero sum game. It can be mutually beneficial. So that also makes no sense. But I didn't really want to talk. We can if you want, dude, because there's so many things. I didn't really want to talk about that moron's tariffs because I just wanted to think like, do you believe in markets? How do you feel about like free markets and markets in general and competition? Like, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, no, it's generally a good thing.
Yeah.
If the competition is, if there's actually competition.
No, I know.
I mean, there's
a
lot of places where like capitalism builds enough wealth to where they can manipulate political systems to start protecting itself, right? Like established capital can protect itself. And then at that point, you don't have capitalism, right? You have people who are just securing their position with the wealth that they have, whatever it is that they're creating. So yeah, I think markets are generally good. You just need a state that actually regulates it.
Yeah, and there's a lot of nuance to parse through, but I just meant like at a general level, like because there's so much nuance to parse through, which is what competent leadership would do, but we never seem to have that. So, wow. And then like I also want to like nobody would ever listen to this, but if they did, and it was like a typical smooth brain on the internet, they would be like, oh. So you're saying you just believe in globalism because of wealth? Like, you don't care about borders? Are you for open borders? No. These people are so dumb. You can say, like, globalism and trade is good for wealth building, but then also have borders and, like, not be nonsense about certain inflow or outflow. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, you can do both things. I just get tired of that. I'm sure you agree with that. Like... That's basically what I'm asking you. It's like, what do you feel about that?
Sorry, I was just looking up stats about, right, because you don't have to, globalism can exist without having open borders or without having massive movement of populations. Right. Those are not inherently the same thing.
Right.
And also, I don't know. I mean, if people are worried, because the worry there is like, oh, we don't want culture to, like, we have American culture and we don't want that to be diluted. But again, a lot of the cultural exchange these days exists on the internet. It doesn't exist in physical spaces.
I'm just like, what are these same people live on the internet, which, by the way, dead internet theory. Like, have fun there doing nothing and talking to Russians and bots, like whatever. But yeah, 100%. It's like, you're really, by the way, I also just go outside here in my Midwest American city that I live in, and it's like, I just want to know what people think, like, big cultural changes. It's just so dumb. It's just so dumb, bro. People do things, they shop, they work. Sometimes they get drunk and pee outside of the toilet because they were drunk, and they go home and go to sleep. And it's like, I don't understand, like, where this, like, other culture is. Whatever. We don't care. We don't care because it's not shit that I subscribe to. So.
Well, it is funny though because so Trump came into office in 2016 and he dropped us out of the TPP, which I believe was the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Yeah.
Which was just basically a free trade agreement with a
Again,
bunch of countries.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Again, I think free trade agreements are good. I just think that the only way that it is good is if you marry it with strong state support to make sure inequality is taken care of and not garbage. You feel me? We're not going to build wealth and exacerbate inequality. That makes no sense. You got to have that check. So that's where, like, again, this whole thing started with I believe in globalism. I'm just going to, I'm going to buy a shirt that says that too, because I love just pissing people off.
Don't do that.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know how many people that would trigger? So many people. I won't do it though. But again, I understand why it triggers people. That's my point. It's like, you have to say that with the fact that I believe in a strong state, strong welfare state that, like, supports basic needs for everyone and makes sure inequality isn't complete garbage. You feel me? Like, I just feel like that's not radical, and I wish it was a thing, but yeah. So anyways, keep going, but TPP, I would have been like, let's do it as long as we have these things covered at home. We do more free trade agreements. Go ahead.
Wow, Bernie was against TPP. How do you feel about that?
I don't hold it against. I love Bernie. I don't hold it against the man at all. I'm not some idiot that thinks, like, oh, the people that I like as politicians are gonna just do no wrong and, like, they're gonna. No, we're normal human beings. I don't think I would agree with him.
Tough.
But here's the thing.
Though,
here's the thing.
Like,
it's not even that I wouldn't agree.
So you
can I wait 1 second? Let me defend 1 second. I was gonna say I might even vote the same way with him when you vote in reality. Like, we're sitting here talking about what I wish it would be, and then I support globalism. That's why you got to be clear. It's like, in reality, if I was voting for something and we didn't have that strong state and free trade was kind of fucking us, the math as it was, then you would vote that way, right? Go ahead. It's called having a spine and principles. Go ahead.
So you are for free trade?
I am for free trade as long as the state is strong and is supporting.
Yeah, but you could argue that by weakening domestic production, you're going to generate less tax revenue. Therefore, you don't have as much money for sponsoring, like, state programs.
We are wealthier than because of production going up, like, or productivity going up like crazy, continuing since the Industrial Revolution. We're wealthier. We've always been today wealthier than we've ever been yesterday as a world. So it's a bad excuse. Like, I understand where the sentiment comes from as far as, like, the numbers do have to work. Dude, I totally agree. I would sit down and I would look at the numbers. And at the end of the day, I would also let the numbers guide me where I'm going to go to. I want to be clear on that. So that's fair. I just think that, like, it's like bullshit to not think about it, to not think about, like, yo, maybe we're wealthier than we've ever been. How do we balance this out? First, just cut. Dude, these people out here, fuck them. They're weak, bro. 50% cut to the defense budget, 75% immediately. I don't give a fuck. And then you're freeing up $750 billion. Not that the deficit's probably higher than that, whatever. But you can do a lot more. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can. By the way, even me, a leftist, supports making government distribution more efficient, meaning, like, we should have as little employees to deliver out the money to people back to them as possible. Like, I agree with that. Nobody says, like, oh, we should have millions and bajillions of fucking federal workers. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, like, all of these ideas that you can even feel like are a little right, I agree with in the right context, where it's saying we're still making benefit payments, if not expanding them, with less employees. And we're making that work. That's what you should do. because you should be taking tax money and redistributing it as efficiently as possible. That's a fact, bro. So, I just always got to be clear about all this stuff. Sorry, I ramble.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that most people would support that sentiment too.
Right? But then they get all caught up in fucking like the simplicities of like being in an echo chamber, you know, whatever one you're in. And it's tricky because I sit in one too. We all do. You just got to try your best. You know what I'm saying? You got to try your best.
Try your best. All right.
I rambled a little bit, so why don't you give me like what you think Trump's endgame is with these tariffs, or if you don't have no idea.
I'm not sure. I do think there's a couple things here because I've seen some speculation that he wants to raise enough money with these tariffs to offset some tax plan that they want to pass later this summer.
So stupid.
I've seen other ideas that he just saw how much the tariffs from China generated in his first term. So, like, to him, it was just a big surplus on the balance sheet. I also don't know if I still don't know if he understands whether or not the American people are paying tariffs. I think he's coming around to that idea, but I can't tell.
I cannot, for the life of me, believe that's even true. I can't. Even if someone told me, even if Trump himself looked at me and said, I believe that to be true, I would still think he's trolling. Because that's so stupid. Go ahead.
He keeps saying it. He's been saying it till
That's
about
so dumb, though.
2 weeks ago, and only recently has he sort of changed his tone on it a bit.
I mean,
Yeah, I don't know why he's convinced that tariffs aren't paid by the American consumer.
Dude.
This came up in the debate with Kamala, actually.
Man.
And he just doubled and tripled down. Like, that's not true. This is not a tax on the American people. And it's like, yeah, that kind of is what it is, though.
He's such a moron. Dude, listen. He looks at the Vietnam trade deficit with the U.S. and he's like, why don't they buy as much from us as we do from them? It's like, dude, it's Vietnam. It's like, what do you mean? Are you saying that you're putting tariffs on countries until they buy as much from us as we do from them? Because in that scenario, we're all fucked. We can buy I'm not trying to be disrespectful.
A lot of clothes.
But like,
a lot of clothes, man.
You better cut back because these countries, like, their GDP isn't even close to like even the debt. I don't even. It's so stupid. So stupid.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, the criticism too would be, right? You could never compete with these countries because the wage for labor there is just so cheap. Because the standard of living is just
fine.
Different.
Then sell me a plan that makes sense because this isn't it. This isn't it. And I think that we're and the anti-globalists out there who are gonna tar and feather me. I hope you do. I'm gonna buy that T-shirt. Fuck you. Anyways, they never, I feel like, face the reality of how much globalism and the wealth it's created, and as long as we've enabled it in the way that it is, has just been ingrained in like all of these societies, especially the most the wealthiest one, and just tariffing that. And like we saw what disrupting supply chains does in COVID, like with the inflation that came from it. He's disrupting supply chains. It's like you're disrupting the whole system, and there's going to be consequences to that.
Actually, I'm glad you brought up COVID, though.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because there is another argument to be made that during COVID, we had a hard time sourcing masks and gloves in this country because we don't make any of it here. And obviously, there's a rush on it.
So,
a lot of it's made in China. They're going to move to protect their own country first. And now we have no supply.
Okay.
There weren't gowns. There weren't enough N95 masks. A lot of that stuff is not produced domestically. Which is a genuine criticism.
Yes, I will respond.
Because in times of crisis, you have to be able to manufacture.
If you diplomacy without your eyes crossed, looking like a goddamn moron, okay, then yes, when times are tightest, you still might go without masks for like a week or two. But if you work together with people and the people who produce things, they probably, with the resources they have manufacturing wise, can produce a surplus, and you try to make that work. Now, is that an answer that's acceptable to people? Probably not to a lot of people, but I don't give a fuck, because what are we talking about here? It's like, oh, the next time a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic comes around, we might not have enough masks. Like, that's not a super high priority. Come on now. Let's not make that out to be some
Yeah, but there's
fucking,
other
like,
times of
oh, like,
crisis.
how many, like, we're going to be a fucking... Okay, but the same people that say this shit won't even take the vaccine. But which we'll put that to the side. I shouldn't even have said that.
Yeah,
I see you.
right.
But I see you.
There's
But I
merits to
see
this
you.
argument.
Yeah, I see you. I just think that, like, how about this? Let me say this. You've depended on a system of globalism that boosts wealth, and your populations even might reflect that now. So you can say, well, we should bring all this manufacturing back here because of what happens if a pandemic happens the next time. Or you can realize that, like, your wealth might be tied to that globalism, or your population, definitely your wealth, but even your population numbers might be tied to that globalism in some way. You're taking pros and cons everywhere. So it's basically is what I'm trying to say. Does that make sense? I feel like I'm fucking rambling, but, like, you're taking pros and cons everywhere. So you might say, like, well, what about the pandemic situation that might happen every once in a while, sometime when my asshole shines on the sun? Okay. But also, what about wealth loss and population loss you might take by shutting down that system? You see what I'm saying? So it's always fun.
I mean, there's more
batting the arguments.
criticisms than that. There's more criticisms than
Yeah,
that.
but we can
that
go
I
back
think
and
are
forth with the
legitimate.
arguments for either, because it's a pros and cons game of whatever. You know what I'm saying? And, like, this kind of reminds me of what I've always thought true leadership is. It's not having an ideology. It's having a way of thinking for, like, what's best for a general, large, even populace in a moment. But that moment can be whatever it is, and it could call for whatever it calls for, you know?
Sure.
But yeah, hit me with another one. Go ahead. Go ahead, anti-globalism crowd. Let's go. Okay, now.
Well, Cyril, how do you feel about
Yeah.
child labor and compelled labor?
That's terrible.
'Cause
100%.
I've got some news for you about a lot of these clothing companies coming out
100%,
from.
dude. But here's the thing.
Interesting.
Well, let me say.
Because here's the thing. That's where. Hang on. Let me round that point off, because this is where globalization fails. Is that we in this country have labor laws, but you can enter into a market where not everybody's playing by the same labor law rules, and people can exploit that by going to poor countries and forcing tiny hands to, stitch some shirts together.
I would say back to you, even if we quit the globalist system, do you think those countries would just all of a sudden let those kids go free? Or are we taking advantage of something that is also being perpetrated on these kids by people in their home country as well? And so, like,
there's
if the
an
end game...
incentive. No, because here's the
I
thing.
agree. You're right. I agree. There is an incentive.
Countries.
No, I'm conceding that right away. But go ahead.
Well, it's not, just to be clear, it's not countries that are forcing these children to work, right? It's companies in these countries with those lax labor laws.
I agree with that too. I do.
But there is a motivation to, right? Because now the market's wide open. Oh, we can make goods for the American market. How cheap can we make it? Let's get them kids in here, baby.
I agree with you. I do think that the average American, especially being the wealthiest country in the world, should be willing, as long as we're keeping basic needs met. It gets so tricky because you got to make sure all that shit's done domestically first. But I do think every American should be willing to pay a little bit more for stuff so that we could embargo countries and cut them off if they do shitty things like that, which we don't do right now. And that's wrong. You're right. That's wrong.
Right, because a true meritocracy there is everybody having to compete with the same rules, essentially.
Yeah.
And if you're not going to do that, like, there's a lot of criticism for the EU right now because there is a fuckload of regulation in the EU, which they do a lot of great things with that regulation.
I was going to say,
what it does is it gums up the wheels of progress.
But that's the
it does.
But
so
that's
other
no.
countries,
but hang on. But you act like that's a bug, not a feature. Why do you act like that's a bug, not a feature? Like, they could be building that
because
into their
other
system.
countries.
I have no idea what their things are, to be clear. But they could be building that. I don't know. I just feel like you're, like, automatically being like, oh, it takes time. But, like, guess what? Just like we're seeing with executive orders that get signed and their fucking asshole bullshit, things should take time. Go ahead.
Yeah, but again, we're looking at this through the lens of a free market. So if the EU has an overly regulated system,
that's fair.
That is very bureaucratic, other countries, they're steaming ahead, right? And they're dealing with the consequences, whatever that they may be. So that's the criticism there.
Yes. Well, it's
In a
not even a
globalist
criticism. Well, hang
society.
on. It's not even a criticism. It's the reality. It's the reality that shit's gonna happen. I just think that it still doesn't raise the bar to being isolationist for me. Like, well, the child thing, the child work thing is fucked up, and I would embargo countries and tell them to kiss my. I don't give a shit, and I would probably lose election because prices would soar, but I don't care. But no, I think there's again, it's a pros and cons thing. Are we We're like you're just shooting the bad up.
Tariff side. I'm getting pulled over the tariff side.
Not the one that Trump's doing. The one that
Trump's doing it in the dumbest way.
Yeah,
possible.
Trump's an absolute moron. Let's be clear about that. Yeah, let's put that to the side.
Yeah,
all right, we said it. We have TDS. We don't care. We're gonna put it to the side. Tariffs can be good. What do you mean you're talking yourself into them? I said that at the beginning. Now you're confusing me. I literally said tariffs can absolutely be good. You just make sense. Make it make sense. Tell me what you're doing. Where the investment is. Where you're protecting jobs so that they're not lost. You know what I'm saying? Like, right.
No, we walk ourselves back into a country where we manufacture everything.
No, that's
completely self-sustaining.
That's still gonna make everything expensive as shit.
It is, but here's the thing.
Go ahead.
Everybody's going to have more jobs, right? So if everything's more expensive, but everybody also makes more wage-wise per capita.
But that's not even true because people.
God bless.
One of Trump's secretaries, because they're all blithering idiots, said on TV once, like, we're going to have Americans now screwing the tiny screws into the iPhones. You're acting like all these jobs want to... Yeah, right, this guy's such a... But you're acting like all these jobs are wanted by Americans. Like, it's not true either. Like, it's way more complicated than that. It's way more complicated than that. And I know you don't believe that we should manufacture everything here because that's insane. But
what if you could
where the line... Go ahead.
Would you be okay with bringing those jobs back if you could guarantee that they would make enough to
Who's going to do them?
Subsidize a certain
Who's going to do the jobs? The shitty manual jobs. Who's going to do that?
Well, let's say they're getting paid $19 an hour. People will do them. $22 an hour.
I don't think you
right?
Well,
your
and I don't. No, I was going to say that you don't.
Now you have a
understand,
higher floor for your wages.
I was going to say you don't understand, but listen, I don't understand either, so I'm not going to disrespect you like that. But I do speculate. No, stop. We're again, everyone. We're stupid.
Get in there.
Anyways, I do think that it's not as easy as bringing all that manufacturing just into the U.S. and it just works, especially at once. Like that's such an influx of jobs. It would crash the job market too. Like it would do so many things. You cannot just snap your fingers. And you know what I'm saying? Like, so look, your sentiment of targeted tariffs over time, slow investment to ramp up, bring it back. Of course. Let me see what it is. If it makes sense and it shows me the jobs were like preserving, jobs were growing, like great. But you can't just like snap your fingers and everything's manufactured here. Even if you wanted everything manufactured here, that would take a lifetime. That would take a lifetime and a ton of investment when you're running deficits. So these fucking clowns, they need to get their shit together, meaning they need to start taxing the haves a lot more. Get this deficit, because even a leftist like me and you agree that the deficit's a thing. Why don't you just tax people more? What the fuck are you doing? Like, figure this out. Restructure. No more Department of Defense. All right, whatever. No rambling.
No Department of Defense.
No 1 trillion Department of Defense. 250 billion and figure it out. 250 billion and figure it out. You know where I'm going to take the 750 billion? I'm going to personally, as the president, I'm going to stuff hundreds in my pocket. I'm going to fucking walk to every trailer park in the country. I'm just going to hand out Benjis. Who do you think's going to win the next election? Suck my Anyways.
Wow.
Populism.
So yeah, I don't know what Trump's endgame with this tariffs is. And the interesting thing is, now that the tariffs are so high with China, it does seem like a lot of trade is going to halt between.
There's going to be such ramifications from that. There's going to be huge ramifications from that. We'll wait and see. But because he's being like a little clown about like, oh, now electronics are exempt yesterday. And then today I sent it to you before this. He sent out like, oh, electronics, I don't know. We're kind of walking back if they're exempt. It's like, it's a clown show. So I just think that like even if these and I read an article or I saw something the other day where it's like, oh, tariffs aren't even being collected yet because like they don't have the infrastructure in place. They were firing all those people. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. It'll be felt. And if it's a total, even if the tariffs aren't even being collected, like you're treating these countries like garbage. It's basically a total embargo with China. Dude, that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is basically. Yeah.
Do you understand? You're a freaking millennial. Picking up every toy we ever grew up with, even now, everything you touch, it's gonna say made in China, brother. So, and then you say, well, sometimes I see made in Vietnam or Thailand. Guess who also got tariffs? Guess who also got 10% across the board? 10% across the board. 10%, you got it. Yes. You got it. Yep. You're about to refute it, and then I said no.
Well, because originally it was like 70% on Vietnam.
I know, because he's an idiot, and the trade deficit
was a lot.
Whatever. Yeah. I think his little chart said, like, doing our own math calculation or whatever it said. It was like, really?
Yeah.
Currency manipulation, etc. I don't even. Yeah.
I do think that he's really shown his ass here, though, because not only did he fuck with the markets, but he immediately walked it all back, and he didn't even get any leverage out of it. All he did was shake faith in the American economy. So I don't know, man. I feel like I don't know if he's gonna try and save face or if he's just gonna drop everything and just call it a victory and hope people forget about it. I don't know. I don't know what kind of cojones he's got.
Nobody knows because he truly believes in the tariffs. Clearly, whatever he thinks of them and however he thinks they work, but they don't work that way. He believes in them.
Yeah,
and like, I just don't know why he would. I don't know why he would walk back. I mean, I guess he has sometimes. Dude, who knows? All right, whatever.
Everybody was screaming in his ear. Everybody around him that has a lot of money was screaming in his ear
it was the
to
bond
pull these
market,
tariffs back.
Which the bond market matters, dude. If U.S. Treasuries yield spike.
Yeah, but he had rich people visiting the White House to basically pull his ear and be like, "Listen, this ain't it, boss."
I agree with you, but also economists were also doing the same thing. Whoever's around him, whoever is, because bond markets were actually crashing. And when bond markets crash, that's bad news. That's way worse than the stock market crashing. That's super bad
100%.
news. The value of the dollar was crashing the other day. I haven't looked at it since Friday, but these things matter, man. And more so than the average person realizes. It's, they like to like clown on the stock market because it's, something most people know. But yeah, bond markets, not good.
Not good. Still not doing great.
It's still not doing great. I know. It's tough. Yeah.
Look at that.
I feel if these tariffs on China stay for at least a couple months, there's going to be some real pain that's going to happen in this country. And when I don't know. Well, I do know. When you topple over, there's always a set of dominoes, right? And if the first one that you push over falls slow enough, doesn't really bump the next one, maybe the next one falls slower, and it stops, you're good. But if you do too many things and you crash things so hard, disrupt supply chains, like crush credit lines, like make owing debt
make
way
borrowing
more expensive.
Very expensive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All these dominoes start falling.
Absolutely.
Now, is it a little conspiracy? I admit it is. I just think it's not so conspiracy in a world where you have an embargo on China. That's what it is, dude. You have an embargo, which is crazy, dude. That's crazy. So, anyways, we hope it works out for the U.S. We know it won't. That's kind of what we do around here. It's kind of what we do around here.
Sure.
I did, in the spirit of economics and even coming off the U.S. dollar, I did want to see what you thought in general of Bitcoin. It's more specifically like where Bitcoin's value is derived from, right? Any idiot knows Bitcoin, supply and demand. That creates the price. We understand that.
Yeah.
But what would make people buy? What gives Bitcoin value? I think in the long term, anybody would hope that you could use Bitcoin in practical ways, and that would give it value.
Mm.
But I just think until that would actually happen, it's so tricky. It's so tricky. I think blockchain as a technology can be really useful and helpful, especially in cutting down. They're coming for our jobs, everyone, especially in cutting down like transaction authenticating and stuff like that, which they're coming for your jobs if you do low level. You know what I'm saying? They're coming.
Sure.
So blockchain can be good efficiency wise. I just, Bitcoin is like supply and demand. And I don't think it would ever like go to zero, but I don't think it'll ever
No.
get adopted as anybody's like central main way of paying for things. And I think it's always going to get solid resistance from any government that would even bother to process those things.
Yeah.
Especially like more wealthy governments. Because I know El Salvador, you could probably just like pay for Bitcoin. Probably not even everywhere. Who knows what it's like there, but they're pretty friendly.
Yes, you can use it as currency there.
Also, full disclosure, I have no Bitcoin. So
I don't know that I can rule out it never actually being used as a form of currency. I could see that happening one day. I do agree, though, that it is not in a government's best interest to adopt cryptocurrency. I don't know why you would ever do that. You completely just divorce yourself from controlling. Like if say the U.S. Bitcoin was our official currency, you can't control the economy as much as you'd like to.
Correct.
Because it is completely decentralized.
Yep.
Um,
You couldn't raise
So, like,
rates,
there's no
lower rates, all this. Well, not even
Right.
rates. Not even rates.
supply of money.
Supply of money. There you go. There you go. And we know. Oh, we know. All these people on the internet always say, "Oh, look at the money line on the Fed website. It goes straight up." You ever seen that money line chart, money supply chart? And the conspiracy theorists always whip out like, "They're just printing money. Look at this." And then, like, you know what I'm talking about at all?
Not really. But
No.
Go on.
Well, now it falls a little flatter as a joke if you have no idea, but
Right, I'm looking
No,
at the
people-
chart of printed money.
people massively conspiracy about the printed money as if GDP growth plus population growth comparatively to your money supply isn't also a thing. You know what I'm saying? It's so stupid. So stupid.
Sure.
I think too, like people also like make fun of the life cycle of currencies or the life cycle of countries, but if human history teaches us anything, I don't give a shit that it's the year of our Lord 2025. Like these things go in cycles, for sure. You
Yeah.
can never, if you're at any point like we were, and even are right now still, sitting in the wealthiest nation of the world at the time, in the history of humanity, and you thought you would be the wealthiest country forever and ever, you're an idiot. You know what I'm saying? So people act like that's like the USA will fail someday. It's like, okay. Like, are you the people that also just like say like, oh, like someday Christ will come, and then you die, but you're like, I was never wrong. I kept saying someday, that day never came. But yeah. Shit goes in
Yeah.
cycles.
Yeah, I don't think Bitcoin's going to be adopted as official ways to purchase things anytime
No, 'cause
soon.
you can't.
But can't rule it out. Well, because
can't.
you can use like, you're not spending a whole Bitcoin.
You can't fight inflation as easily as like a country. Like if you don't have control
Well,
over,
for sure.
Right.
Yes.
or even more things than that too. Like there's other things that they'll do.
I guess with
yeah.
Bitcoin though, wouldn't there never be inflation if the supply is always fixed? How does that work? That's interesting.
You see, that's the problem. Like you're gonna have a fixed supply of a denomination, but you're gonna
Yeah.
have extremely fluctuating populations. Like the population matters. The population that this currency is cycling in, whatever society it's in, that matters. This shit is complicated. There's a lot of variables, but population is absolutely one of them, and they never talk about that. They always say like, oh, in 1794 we printed $6. Now we print $600,000. It's like, all right, in 1794 there was 6 people. You know what I'm saying? So we don't think about that at all. These numbers matter, and it's never a part of the calculus, which is annoying. But it's not everything, too. There's no question that nations can run things poorly for any given amount of time, right? I'm sure you would agree with that, too. But it's not some conspiracy. Can't remember when I brought this up to you recently, but I was telling you about how, I used to be a Ron Paulite, but like he rages against the Fed, and it's just, come on, dude.
You fuck with the Fed?
What? Who fucks with the Fed?
Like you like the Fed as a concept?
This is what we're talking about. It's being able to control your currency. So, I think as a concept, yeah. But again, everything's so black and white, it feels like. So any smooth brain listening to this would be like, oh, he's pro-Fed. But I could easily point to things that probably don't feel comfortable with me. Printing money is not one of them. But yeah. You don't fuck with the Fed?
You don't fuck with the Fed?
I'm asking you.
Well, I don't know enough, but I have always found it weird that the Fed is separate from the federal government.
That's massively good in times like right now. Right now.
Well, particularly if Trump could get his hands on the fucking...
Hell yeah.
I agree with that, yeah, because he would just print money.
Now, look. If there's a recession and a contraction, right, in the economy, typically that also is a downward pressure on prices. So if tariffs raise prices, but we have kind of pain, like maybe prices just kind of stay flat, but that's best case scenario. Meaning like best case scenario, the Fed doesn't have to do too much, but should still be able to just kind of make their own decisions. But I'm sure if Trump was in charge, he would be like 0%. Bitch,
Right.
with that money, blah. Yeah.
I sent you a link if you want to pull up this latest post on Trump's True Social. And we'll just watch it, you and I together, full screen. I haven't watched it, but it looks very cringe and just...
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening.
Why is he
I saw this. This was last night, wasn't it?
I believe so, yeah. Like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything? Why is he posting? Like, he's a content creator. Like, you're the president, man. Nobody gives a fuck that you went to UFC. Why? Like, why, dude? What is... To me, this just says so much about him as a person. And I know...
Of course.
You know, we're just rehashing the same shit over and over again as far as, like, who Trump is as a person. But, like, shit like this, I feel like we should just never forget how irregular all of this is. Why did he just post a montage of people jerking him off at UFC? Like, what are we doing? Anyways. Oh, look at you. You're on another post, huh? What's that guy?
Bro, this stuff makes me literally,
Almost
like,
every
it makes
week,
my
60
eyeballs roll into my freaking forehead. Almost every week,
He is
60
doing
minutes,
60 minutes.
which is being sued for billions of dollars. For the fraud they committed in the 2024 presidential election. So is the 2024 presidential election fraudulent? Is that what he's saying there? Because that's all I take from that. We can stop it there.
They tried to commit fraud.
Who's they? Oh, 60.
Dude, 60 Minutes like edited a Kamala Harris answer.
Stupid. Anyways, all right.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have TDS. Anyways. With their interview of failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris mentions the name Trump in a derogatory and defamatory way, but this weekend's broadcast tops them all. Oh boy. They did
What
not
go
one,
ahead.
but two major stories on Trump. One having to do with Ukraine, which I say is a war that would have never happened if the 2020 election had not been rigged.
Rigged.
In other
Yeah.
words, if I were president, and the other story was what? In other
Having
words,
to
if I
do
were
with-
president, and the other story was having to do with. Can we end the sentence? All right, whatever.
I don't
Other
know
story
what-
to do with Greenland, casting our country as led by me. Dude, I've never seen commas
Lot
like
of
this.
commas. Lot of commas.
Everybody who doesn't listen out there, I don't read as truths ever, so I've never realized how many commas.
It's awful.
As led by me, falsely, inaccurately, and fraudulently. Oh, there we go. I'm so honored to be
still don't know
suing.
what that
I am
sentence
so
said.
honored to be suing 60 Minutes, CBS Fake News, and Paramount over their fraudulent, beyond recognition reporting. They did everything possible to
Incredible.
illegally elect Kamala, including completely and
Yeah.
corruptly changing major answers to interview questions, but it just didn't work for them.
Not true.
They are not a news show. Oh, this is all false. This man should be. Anyways. They're not a news show, but a dishonest political operative simply disguises news and must be responsible for what they have done and are doing. They should lose their license. Did he spell license right? I think he did. Hopefully, the Federal Communications Commission,
He did.
FCC, just say FCC, man. Why would you spell? He dictates tweets to people. That's what this is. He dictates tweets to people. There's no way he types this shit out. He just has someone who stands next to him, and he's like, "Hey, I'm ready to truth." And they're like, "Okay." He just tells them what to. As head advisor's highly respected chairman, Brandon Carr, will impose the maximum fines and punishment, which is substantial, for their unlawful and illegal behavior. CBS is out of control.
CBS is out of
Dude,
control.
if you think CBS is
CBS is out of control.
you're such a weak person. I don't even.
Oh, what a loser,
It's-
dude.
Yeah, he posted it twice. One 7 minutes ago and one
It's-
6 minutes ago.
Oh yeah, here we go. I just finished watching 60 Minutes of fake news. Wait, hang on, I'm reading that.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
I just finished watching 60 Minutes of fake news show that was scandalously responsible for removing a terrible and incompetently delivered answer by failed presidential candidate Kamala Harris to an interview on 60 Minutes. Which, by the way, I don't know if you ever watch what they actually edited because the
I don't
uncut
give a
answer
shit,
was
man.
also released. It
Who
was
cares?
like
Stupid.
it was nothing.
Gives a fuck, man.
Just prior to election day and putting in its place a completely different answer to a completely different question in order to make Kamala look coherent. Now tonight with two separate but highly inaccurate stories about Trump, which is for some reason in quotations
quotes
and
every
all
time,
caps.
baby. Every time.
They're at it again. So sorry. His gripe tonight is that they have two stories about his presidency that he doesn't like. That's his
got it.
criticism about tonight.
got it.
Incredible.
Also, the
What
best
a
part of
bitch.
this is him complaining about this and him
fucking
saying, "I
loser.
just finished watching it." By the way, it is the weakest form of person that would have an actual like legitimate beef with something like a news show, which is dumb, but have an actual beef from in the past and then keep watching it. Why do you keep watching? You literally said that they're like not fair to you, and you know they're like this and that. This is what I don't get about Trump fans. It's like you don't see that he's like a total fraud. Like he doesn't care about conservative values. He only cares about himself
freedom of speech
to the point that he's watching 60 Minutes, bro. Let's take a quick poll out here. These hundreds of people, these fine people out here. If you were actually president, would you watch 60 Minutes? Oh, none of them say they would. You're insane. You're fucking actually insane. Why? Like, who cares? But he does it.
Yeah.
He does it. He watches Fox and Friends. You know? He liked Pete Hesketh and made him Department of Defense from the old Fox and Friends. So it's good times all around.
Good times all around.
Good old Pete
We
Hesketh.
we love that our president does nothing but golf and go to UFC.
Uses
jerk himself
Signal.
off.
Why would they use Signal? You tell me. Why would they use Signal?
Yeah. You
because they can get
preserve
around.
government records.
You got it.
There you go.
Then their messages just get deleted and nobody's the wiser. So who knows? Maybe they're sharing all kinds of weird stuff in those chats because they know nobody will ever see them. Someone should look into that.
Someone should look into that. If only we had some accountability office or something like that. You know what I'm saying?
This
Yeah.
Holy Week, Melania and I join in prayer with Christians. Dude, the White House being on truth is definitely a Trump thing, right? Like, they didn't do that in Biden's term. You wouldn't think.
Right, for sure.
Count on truth, bro. I wonder if they post on X and other places too, or if Trump's just like, yeah, just post on truth. I don't care. Like, you should only be posting on truth. I bet you he does. Oh, there's a video you showed us. Which county shifted towards and he shares the New York Times anytime he can. Anytime he can.
Well, it's whenever it's something good about him, he doesn't give a fuck. Whenever he hears something negative, then it's a problem.
Oh, yeah. Vermont shifted blue. Vermont out here. Sheesh. I thought they were already blue. They shifted blue in 2024. That's wild. A lot of riffraff about how he won a lot of African American voters last year, but it looks like a lot of the black belt in Alabama and Mississippi voted more blue. And Atlanta, which is pretty African American, voted more blue. Interesting. I actually want to dig into this. It's very interesting. Not from Truth Social, though. Fuck that, man. You know what I'm saying? All right, anyways.
Russia has to get moving. Too many people dying,
So
thousands a week. In a terrible and senseless war, a war that should never have happened, and wouldn't it happened if I were president? Like, you are president.
Every
You're
single
currently the
person
president.
that listens, listen to this and thinks to themselves, I don't like this guy. I love Trump. I want you. And if you don't do this, you're not an actual Trump fan. I want you to go and buy as much Trump coin as you can on the market right now. Right now. Hold it. Hold it for like 10 years at least. Be faithful to what you think is value. And then I will let you poop in my mouth. But only until you do that. Only until you do that.
Wow.
There you go.
Incredible.
By the way, poop in my mouth metaphorically. Am I using that term correctly? I hope so.
Yeah. Close enough, I would say.
Yeah. Oh, boy. Anyways.